anybody has. So, you know, I think that the main thing I wanted to start out with is just talking a little bit about the uncertainty that we're all experiencing. This is like a once in a lifetime thing, you know, how negative it is, you know, right now. It's just something that was completely, you know, I didn't see it coming, and I don't think anybody saw it coming, even worldwide. So, and it affects all of us. It affects, you know, myself. I had a business going, it's not going anymore. And all of a sudden, because our business was with the hotels in Cancun, and it all of a sudden, from one day to the other, it's like, that's it. So, you know, that's how we got affected here. So, and I know everybody has their little story. So I think there are 2 points, or I guess 2 of the most important points of this whole presentation is, the first one is don't get the disease. And the second one is don't give the disease. So I think that, you know, that's sort of the backdrop of you know, this whole presentation. I just wanted to mention something about how this happened. You know, we were, you know, for those of you who have, I guess all of us have attended some of the Vegan Wave projects that we've had, you know, with the potlucks, or the movie that was shown at the theater, the Shelter Theater, and we had a discussion group at the Shelter Theater with 2 and 3 invited people from Querétaro. So that was going. It was really growing. We had a scheduled vegan fest for beginning of April, I think it was 10th, and that was canceled. And then there was another one for May, and that was canceled. That was a big summit that was supposed to be in Querétaro. So all these things are changing. And then we sort of got together. I was Colin, Robert, and Glenn, and myself, and we talked, well, what about the possibility of doing something online? Because what's happening now, especially with the Zoom, is that people have the opportunity to either make presentations, Zoom presentations, or participate. And I think that's really what's going on. And Zoom is going to be have a very good business going now, because people, just like Netflix, people are really going to be, you know, depending a lot on it, because, you know, things are going to be virtual now that we're, you know, staying home either all the time or most of the time. So, anyway, so this is like the first time we're doing this with the Zoom. Maybe we'll have some follow-ups, and if anybody else joins, you know, just, you know, they're going to be able to see that, you know, anybody can join, get up-to-date information that's being posted on the Vegan Wave Facebook page. Anybody can join that, and so, you know, we'll just keep on going and see where this goes. I was going to go now to the agenda. Where and how did it begin? And then the second theme is the Mexican government's coronavirus response, and then the immune system, our first line of defense. Really, the whole basis of, or the main, the core of this presentation is part of the title, which is, you know, the immune system. And so we're going to be having that. At the end, I have the questions and answers and comments if anybody has any. So where and how did it begin? Well, I think that, you know, they were just, at first nobody was really sure, but then there's been more, like, there's a lot of, you know, sort of agreement happening. We're talking about the Chinese wet markets, and I'm not sure if you've heard about them, but they're in different parts of China. There's one in Wuhan where this thing supposedly started. And the wet markets are an interesting place because it's where people can buy wild animals. And we're talking about anteaters and porcupines and wolves and foxes and rats and snakes, as well as chickens and donkeys and other things. They're all put together in these wet markets. And this has been going on a long time, these wet markets. In fact, they were the SARS-2 virus that was 2003, they also were connecting it to the wet markets. And then after, when the SARS hit, they started out also from China, they banned the wet markets, or they at least suspended them. And then there was a tremendous demand because a lot of people, it's for wealthy people. Poor people can't afford this because these animals are very expensive because they were caught in the wild. So the people they buy them, and in fact, sometimes the workers there, they kill the animals in front of the people, in front of the clients. So they have a combination of all these animals put together in a very small confined spaces, and they're with the meat there. When they cut them, they hang the meat there, and also it's a conglomeration of people walking in and out, and that's what's happening in these wet markets. But they're very popular. That's why they brought them back. So now they're saying again, that this is possibly where it all started. And it's interesting because, and I think about, the factory farms, which we have here in the West, in the United States, well, here in Mexico and in Europe as well. It's somewhat the same. All of a sudden, we're having this tremendous confinement of animals in this small space, and they're treated horribly. I mean, there's a lot of filth, and I've seen, I guess most of you have seen, pictures of these, how they're slaughtered and how they're bunched together, especially, the chickens, the cows, and the pigs. So now that's why I put a question mark, is like, what about that connection? So it was interesting because right before this presentation, I saw that Michael Greger had a video, it was a conference that he gave. Well, I didn't know it was like from years ago.
It's got something.
He looked like overweight. I said, Michael Greger gained a lot of weight the last couple of days. But he was talking about this, the pandemic, the possible pandemic could be happening. And he was, this conference that he gave was 12 years ago. And it was like, I can't believe it. It was like, this is what what should be presented today, because he was talking about all these pandemics that was happening in the past and the flu that was coming from it. This is not the first time, but they knew that they've had these warnings from way back in the past that there could be a tremendous pandemic coming from this eventually. And he talks about starts out talking about the Chinese wet markets, and then he talks about the factory farms, especially with the chickens. And there are some farms where you have billions of chickens all together under one roof. So, and this is it's sort of like a incubator for viruses. And this is the last trend of viruses and flus. We haven't heard from a lot of them, but they're smaller ones, smaller versions that have been happening since 1975. And this is what's happening. And, people, it was 12 years ago that the World Health Organization, I saw this in his presentation, wanted a moratorium on the factory farms. This was 12 years ago, and it never happened. And then I went to this last, so one of the last quote I saw there, I'll read it to you here, you can see it. This is made by one of the top people from the World Health Organization. The bottom line is that humans have to think about how they treat their animals, how they farm them, how they market them. Basically, the whole relationship between the animal kingdom and the human kingdom is coming under stress. In this age of emerging plagues, we now have billions of feathered and curly-tailed test tubes for viruses to incubate and mutate. Within billions more, spins at pandemic roulette. Along with human culpability, though, comes hope. If changes in human behavior can cause new plagues, well, then changes in human behavior can be prevented in the future. And I saw that this was the end of his presentation 12 years ago. And here we are. And it's like, I'm just looking, nobody knows what's going to happen here. We have different ideas, thoughts. Oh, this is like the flu, it's just like, less people are dying. And it's really amazing, because nobody really knows. So I think we really have to, look at that, and maybe, this thing, what I just put up there and what Greg was talking about, is something to take into consideration again. But anyway, that's what I wanted to mention and that in this moment. So I'm going to go ahead here. The Mexican government's response. This is really interesting because this is the latest statistics I got. Because I listened to at least part of the president, AMLO's presentations in the morning. And in the evening, every evening at 7 o'clock in Spanish, he has representatives from the Secretary of Health. And this is from last night, and the latest statistics were 585 confirmed cases and over 585 confirmed cases and 8 deaths. And then, I'm sure people are saying, well, what's going on here? How is this possible that there's, these are, the figures. So some people say, well, those are real figures and not enough people being tested and, and so on and so on and so forth. So, but anyway, that's, what the latest statistics are. And as far as a perspective, I've been thinking about this a lot. And I think what's really important is, just to see that, every country is different. Every country has different, things that they have to confront, different situations. The U.S., for example, they're in their thing. Now U.S. supposedly has more cases than any other country, and they're going through it, especially New York and California. And they're deciding what they're going to do. And the latest thing that came out today, it's been, or I guess signed by Trump, is that they're sending out at least $1 trillion, to people to help them in, well, I'm going to be getting, I have Social Security, so I'm going to be getting a check and, supporting people who are, losing their jobs, unemployment insurance, support for companies. So they're doing that, and they have them, they have this money to support that, at least in the short term. And other countries are doing different things. So Mexico is, unfortunately doesn't have $1 trillion. Mexico talks about, billions that they can use. So they're doing, what they can do. And, but there's different problems in Mexico. Mexico, 50% of the country is in poverty. There are 25 million indigenous people in Mexico that don't even speak, most of them don't even speak Spanish. And they don't have access to the internet. They don't know what's going on, possibly. And there are 78 different indigenous groups with different languages. So getting the help to these people and dealing with this whole situation is different for Mexico. And my son Renato, he lives in Quintana Roo, where is also a lockdown. And he told me, he sends me this information that in El Salvador, the president is doing incredible things. He's sending money to the people, and he's supporting businesses and everything. And I said to him, and I checked it out. El Salvador has 6.5 million people. Mexico has 130 million people. Salvador, the area of Salvador is smaller than Guanajuato. So it's like, we really have to see what's going on here, and we really have to listen to what's, being done. And, what's one thing is different with Mexico is, I'm going to go right now into the protective protocols. They're pretty similar to what's happening in other places. But one of the things that, the president is stressing is because Mexico has always had a very good family situation. Families have always been strong in Mexico, although not that strong now because a lot of people are moving. But the family group has always been very, very important in Mexico. So he's been going back to that, with people, families getting together and, this part of the protocol of staying home and, working, supporting each other, taking care of the elderly. And then and another thing he was saying today is that, for companies to, if they're going to let people go, to support them, economically. And we're hoping that, that's going to happen. I know that Carlos Slim has been given a lot of money. There are several wealthy people, billionaires, who are now entering and supporting, the movement here to stop the, see what they can do to slow down or stop the, the virus. And another thing that Carlos Slim did, because he owns a lot of companies, including the Telmex and Telcel, and he's not firing anybody. So they're gonna have their jobs. So it's hard to say what's going to happen in Mexico, but the protocols are similar. Emphasizing stay home, because that's going to be the best way to prevent the spread of this disease. Maintaining a safe distance of 6 feet or something like that, or 2 meters, however you look at it. You wash your hands for 20 seconds, and you don't shake the hands, people. Don't hug, don't kiss, and disinfect surfaces, because the virus can stay for a while on the surfaces, especially metal and plastic. And again, the people staying home, one of the problems that Mexico faces, that maybe, with staying home could be difficult for everybody, especially over a long period of time. But in Mexico, there's always a problem of family violence. That's one of the latest things. So last night in the meeting that happened with the health secretary, there were also somebody from the Women's League, against the violence for women, and also psychologists. And they were, talking about, how to live together for long periods of time. So they're approaching it, in a different way, but, that's what the general, protocol is. Another thing they mentioned about using masks only with symptoms, that's been stressed, pretty constantly, that, one of the reasons is that, there are a scarcity of masks, and the other is, what the representative, the doctor, was saying, is that masks should be used if you're going out. You should be used only if you have symptoms, because masks, will only protect your mouth and your nose when entering, but it won't protect your eyes. So you can get the virus through your eyes unless you're wearing goggles or something. So basically that was, but the basic thing was to stay home, even though we're around here in San Miguel and we see people working all the time on the different projects. So we'll see where that, that heads. So this was really interesting, and I really wanted to, I don't know if any of you have seen this or you know about this, but this was the night before last, and this is showing the how the virus works, how it grows. And here he's taking, this is Gattel, his Dr. Gattel. He was presenting this, and he's covering it's covering China and Italy. No, I don't know if it's China, or is it Italy, Spain, France, Germany, United States, and here's Mexico. So he's talking about there's this period where very little happens in every country. 3 cases, 4 cases, a few cases, and that's this level line, the level line over here that, right behind him, that goes level, and all of a sudden it starts going up, and boom, then it skyrockets. And that's why you see, like for example, in the United States, every few days it's doubling, the people being affected. So this circle here is when they start taking measures. It goes through different phases. The first phase is the flat one. The second phase is when the communitary, when it can be spread from one person to another. And the third phase is when it, really gets out of hand. So basically it's out of hand because they made their changes. You see where the circles are. This is what he's saying. Mexico had the advantage because the United States, first case in the United States, I'm saying what he, telling you what he said. The first case in the United States was in January. The first case in Mexico was in February. So this is Mexico right here along the blue line, blue circles on the bottom here. And Mexico started doing, this stay home and started taking their actions as early as possible. So here we are in Mexico, and we've just gone into second phase, which is communitary. Now it's starting to be spread among people, but you only have 8 deaths as of yesterday, or I think last night. So, but the thing is that this is going to go up. There's no stopping it. I mean, that's what he said. But the whole idea is if we do whatever we can, staying home, the best of protection is staying home and maintaining your distance. Those are the 2 main ways. If they keep, they emphasizing this. If we do this, we won't stop it. But what can happen if we do this is that it won't be going straight up the line. The possibility is it will level off, and then it will level the curve at an earlier time. And they even mentioned this lock off or the lockdown that we're in, and staying safe distances. Basically is going to last until, he gave the date, April 19th. So if we do this until April 19th, then we're looking at that date as a chance that this thing will start leveling off and not go in the direction that it's going in the other countries. So I just thought that this was really interesting, this presentation. And he's a really sharp guy. I mean, just listening to him, so anyway, and the president of Mexico is basically following what the scientists and the health professionals are deciding. Whatever they say, that he does that. It wasn't like that a few days ago, not too long ago, when they were, okay, everybody should work, go back to work, and unless you're sick. But now it's changed. Now it's stay home. And even the government shut down as of yesterday, and except for people that are necessary, that are important to keep the government running, but not those that are not critical jobs in the government are staying home, and the government is going to pay them full salary and pension and whatever they deserve. So these are the steps that are being done now. But every morning, we listen to him, and he, and from Monday to Friday, and every evening at 7 o'clock, 7 days a week, is this report from the from the Secretary of Health. So anyway, I just wanted to mention this. This is what's happening in Mexico. It's constantly changing, of course, but you may hear different things, that he's not doing enough, or, why does this happen? How could that? It's not easy because of the situation in Mexico. And it's, it's just, they're doing the best they can as far as I see. And, things are getting more intense as the days go. And, we'll just see where it goes as the days pass. So anyway, I wanted to go to how important is our immune system. So let me see what it is. Okay. The immune system, here's a picture. This was my desktop photo for like the last year. And then I see that this is a virus. I've had it as my desktop. So anyway, I put this up here. And the immune system, when we were born, we got our life, and our life lives inside our body, and the body works 24/7, during our whole lifetime in protecting us. The body's goal is constantly trying to keep us healthy. That's what it does. That's what it does. That's why it, takes care of the heart and our breathing with the lungs and the circulation. I mean, we know this. And then one of the main tools of the body is the immune system. And the immune system fights against the invasion of the foreign foreign invaders. And that's what it does, whether it's, the virus or cancer or bacteria or toxins. That's what it does. That's what the immune system does. So when a virus comes in, uh, you know, we have, the body fights it, and that depends how well the body fights the immune system depends on its strength. And that's why, how important is the immune system? Well, it's obvious how important it is. But what's even, the immune system is just a part of what the body does. So to me, if we take care of our immune system and we do what's necessary for our immune system, we are going to help the body, take care of us and, work against preventing disease and even reversing disease and avoiding disease. And, besides, giving us a stronger immune system. So the immune system is our first line of defense, but nobody's talking about it. I mean, that to me is why this talking about the immune system is so critical, but you don't hear anything about it. The government is just saying, oh, you got to send it, the people who are most effective, they're the elderly, people with high blood pressure, people with diabetes, people who are obese, people who are smokers, people who have asthma, and people who have weak immune systems. So these are the things, but the whole, the first line of defense is the immune system. And yet, if we, change the way we, take care of ourselves and what can we do to, improve our immune system, we find that it's the same thing that we need to do in order to improve our health and to avoid other diseases, whether it's heart disease, cancer, osteoporosis, diabetes. It's all the same. They take care of it all the same. So anyway, so governments and health professionals are not emphasizing this. I have no idea why, but that's the way it is. So they just tell you, people with weak immune systems, especially, you're told, or we're told, because I'm an elderly guy, we're told that as you get older, your immune system gets weaker. And we're supposed to accept that. And that's what happens because we're not doing the right things. We're not living the right lifestyle in order to prevent this from happening. Because the fact remains that if you're living, me included, if we're living in a healthy lifestyle, we can have strong immune systems. The people in, I don't know, maybe the 40s and the 50s. And then if something happens, we do get a virus or we do get a flu, and either now or sometime in the future, it'll be either no symptoms or a mild case. So that's what we need to be looking for. And so anyway, so that's what I wanted to stress. And the other thing is that 80% of the people who do get the flu, this coronavirus, will get either no symptoms or a weakened form of it, a mild case of it. So, and now, I guess the mortality is now up to around 4% or so. And compared to other things, it doesn't seem that much, if you look at it that way. Well, it's not that, because some people say, oh, compared to the flu, tens of thousands die in the flu. And, my brother says that. He's in New York. Yeah, there's no big deal because he goes out anytime he wants. And tens of thousands died in the flu, is no comparison. Yeah, but the problem is this is a new one. We don't even really know. Some people, what we're hoping happens, I mean, this is from what I'm reading, what we're hoping happen is what happens to other flus, ends up seasonal. In other words, the hot weather starts, coming in, the humidity starts coming in, and the flu starts, behaving like the seasonal flu. This coronavirus starts behaving like the seasonal flu. We don't know that at all. That's why, we really don't know. Some people project, well, maybe it's, it's going to be the summertime. Maybe it's going to be October. I don't know. Well, maybe now, I don't know if you read or you heard this information. In China was going through the flu, and all of a sudden the number of cases were falling a lot. All of a sudden, I think people started, okay, it's time to go out. We're free again. And they started to go out and they started having parties and getting together. And now it's changing again. And the cases are going up. Not that much yet, but that's what's happening. And now the professionals, the health professionals are saying, well, maybe this is going to be coming in waves. And this is just the first waves. So you really got to be, take this in consideration, and, if we just remember the two things, you don't want to get it and you don't want to give it. So I don't know, because everything else is sort of, well, what am I going to do? Who am I going to listen to? To me, it's like the two main things that seem to be, general all over the world is stay at home. And if you stay at home and you maintain the distance, it's impossible to get, if we lock ourselves, each one of us on this call, locks ourselves in a room for a month, I guarantee we're not going to get the flu, the coronavirus. We're not in our room. We're now confined in our, in our houses, but it's sort of a single idea. So that's really the basic way, hopefully more and more people will actually do this. So to me, it's like, it's really our own responsibility, to take care of ourselves. And then I go to, why is consuming whole plant-based foods fundamental for a strong immune system and overall health? It's not the only thing, but to me, it's fundamental. And I go to the first graph, and this is, what I have here. So, and also, well, you see, it's not only, whether it's eating poorly or, we're talking also about refined and processed foods as well, which, we really, well, people eat a lot of that. So anyway, so we're talking about these are the positives of the plant food, the antioxidants, which fight against the free radicals that lead to, chaos and cancer in the body. They've been linked to that. And fiber, fiber is so critical. And if you're not eating enough plants, you're not getting enough fiber, because fiber plants are is the only food that contains fiber. Animal products do not contain fiber. And the more animal products you eat, the less plant products you're eating, and the less fiber you're getting. And fiber is extremely important. Beside, helping us with our regularity and, going to the bathroom and varicose veins that can come with a lack of it. Fiber is so important for the microbiome. The microbiome is, our gut health, and our gut health depends upon the good bacteria in our gut, and the good bacteria in our gut eats the fiber. That's their favorite food. And then they protect us. They protect us from getting, colon cancer, diverticulosis, Crohn's disease, all kinds of diseases of the intestine. So that's why fiber is important. Whole carbs, that's where we get our energy from. And whole carbs are really important. A lot of people are into the low carb, people especially losing weight. They're into the low carb, high fat, high protein diets. And you're not getting the carbs. And carbs are super important, because that's where the bulk of the nutrients are. So it's important to eat carbs, the phytonutrients, which are found in, they're plant nutrients. Phyto means plants. And the phytonutrients are, actually in plants. They help plants protect themselves. The phytonutrients, well, against the invaders from the outside, plagues, insects, and the environment in general. When we consume the phytonutrients, we find in the fruits and vegetables, then we're getting the benefits that, from the plants. And then what we don't have when you eat plants is the cholesterol and the saturated fats. So there is some in, for example, in coconut and palm fruit, saturated fats, but, cholesterol is basically found. We're talking about dietary cholesterol, because, the body makes the cholesterol because it's needed for, many functions. And, but it doesn't need extra cholesterol, because that's what, harms us in the end. So we have that. And then, plus you get, with now the inflammation is linked to, too much animal protein. And then you get the hormones and the antibiotics, if you're, especially if you're eating, meat and dairy and chicken, from the factory farms, you're getting all these hormones that they use to fatten them up, antibiotics that, you know, that 80% of the antibiotics that they use, that they're produced, are used in the factory farms to prevent infection, but they can't do it. They can't prevent the infections. It's impossible. They're so confined together, and there's such abominable situations, these animals in the factory farms, that, it ends up that people start eating that in, they're buying it in the supermarket or wherever, and that's what they're getting. And, that's possible spread of the virus, the viruses, in case they. So here I put down here the, fruit and vegetables, the brighter, the better. The vibrant color, these are important for the immune system. Vibrant colors signal the presence of antioxidant and anti-inflammatory phytochemicals, and I put down some of them here. If anybody's interested, by the way, let me take a little drink here. If anybody's interested, by the way, I could send the this PowerPoint to them. They'll be okay, Then we have whole grains, legumes, and fruits provide fiber for a healthy gut. Here we have whole grain breakfast cereals, whole wheat pasta, whole grain bread, oats, barley, and rice. So you can read, these are the fruits and vegetables, legumes. So, that's what, these are some of the things we can eat to strengthen our immune system and provide, good health. And then there's other things that that have been connected to a strong immune system. Vitamin C, we've heard about that. And these are some of the fruits and vegetables that provide that in good quantity. Then we go on to vitamin E. Vitamin E, we have almonds, well, we have peanuts, a lot of the nuts and seeds. And then we have zinc. Zinc is also, they claim it to be very important for the immune system. Here we have the beans, lentils, tofu. And if you like tofu, the walnuts, cashews, different seeds. Anyway, so that's pretty much getting to the, let's see, here we have other factors that strengthen the immune system. So here we have, beside the food, which what I've been reading, information I have is by far the most important. We have exercise, this is also for the immune system. Minimalize heavily processed food, salt and sugar. Exercise could be, it doesn't have to be intense, because now I used to go to the gym. I don't go to the gym anymore. So I walk every morning. I know that Colin goes out, he does his nice walks there. And, it's important. One of the problems you have, now that the gyms are closed and people are not going out, they may not be exercising. And it's really important to exercise, at least, partially, because it's very important for the stress, it relieves stress and it strengthens the immune system. So I hope that people are starting to go out and exercising, because, if you stay at home, you don't go out, you don't exercise, there's the danger of getting weight, and you don't want that. So exercise is important in minimalizing the heavily processed foods, salt and sugar. Doesn't mean you shouldn't eat any salt and sugar, but, reduce it. Reducing stress, it's really important, because stress can wreak havoc on the immune system. It has the the stress hormones that wreak havoc on the system, and in order to reduce stress, we can do, what I do is I meditate in the morning. My wife does yoga, meditation, and also exercise, good for reducing stress. You can do, well, I mentioned yoga, dancing, just finding ways to, reduce it. I find that meditation is really good, because it sort of helps me, create that little distance, between me, Michael, and everything else that's happening around me. So I find that very helpful. Sleep. Sleep is, really important. That's one of the things sometimes I find it hard to get enough sleep. But, each person should decide. You get different people say different amounts of sleep. Some say 8 hours, some say 7, some say 6. So I think it's a very individual thing, how much sleep you get. I feel pretty comfortable between 6 and 7 hours. I very rarely get more. And if I get less than 6 hours, I start yawning. And it ends up that, I don't want to get problem with my immune system by not getting enough sleep. So I really try to focus on that. And maintaining a healthy weight, body mass index, and maintaining a healthy weight. And that'll help. And also, positive and caring relationships. Now that we're in our house, in our homes most of the time, we may be alone. If we're alone, we can, be in communication with people and our families, and we could. It's really important to have those positive relationships. Because sometimes you're together. There are people here in Mexico and the United States. You're together with a family, and that can really be grueling if there's if you're spending a long time together. If this thing draws out. So that's really important. So that is just before we get into, I guess we're getting close here. But before we get into the questions or comments, just wanted a couple of thoughts. How I react to the situation is more important than the situation itself. I don't know if you've ever heard, there's a story that I heard. It's called The Good Wolf and the Bad Wolf. And it's a famous story that it's told in different cultures. But anyway, it's the good wolf and the bad wolf of this tribe of Indians. And this young person, well, the brave, goes to the chief and said, "Chief, I have a question for you." And he said, "Well, what's the question?" He says, "Well, how come in people, sometimes the same people are good and sometimes the same people are bad?" And the chief says to him, "Well, it's because every person has the good in them and they have the bad in them." And the boy says to him, "Well, who wins?" And the chief says, "The one you feed." So I really like that because we have a choice. Here we are, we're in this situation, and there's always the potential of fear, anxiety, confusion, all these things, anger at people, that's the negative, that's the wolf, that's the bad wolf. And the positive wolf is having patience. We're in this, could be in this for the long haul, kindness towards people, understanding, because we're in this together. Kindness, maybe between countries, It was interesting because AMLO said yesterday had a meeting with the G20. And I don't know if many people know about this. There were representatives from countries from all over the world, United States, Russia, China, 20 countries. And they were talking about what are they going to do to help them. And one of the things AMLO mentioned was, we need to help each other in these times. So that's why, understanding, empathy for people. So this is a chance for us to change, and maybe find the humanity in each one of us, because of the situation we're finding ourselves in. And the other thing I wanted to mention is appreciate what I have, not what I don't have. I'm alive, I have this life, I'm breathing, and appreciate simple things. I have air, I'm living with my wife, and just appreciate the simple things. Things used to be simple. When I remember I'm the only one here that had a time when the television didn't exist. And we had family, it was very simple back there, Now things are so much more complicated. So I think, remembering and appreciating what we have, the simple things in life, and ourselves, how inside we have, wonderful things, we have peace, joy, tranquility, and get in touch with that. and share it, because there are a lot of people who aren't feeling that now and going through very difficult times. So that's it. So I guess, I don't know, we could open it up, and we have one new person, Nicolette. So I don't know if there's any comments, any questions.
Well, Michael, there was one question from Colin. I see quite a few people wearing masks. Do you suppose those people all have symptoms, or are they uninformed?
Oh, I mean, they're wearing masks in their houses?
The question was from Colin. I know I've seen lots of people on the street, and
oh, yeah,
I know
yeah.
somebody who went out to buy a mask because they were scared.
Yeah, well, that's what
on the streets, Michael, that I see
Right.
wearing.
Yeah.
I see people in the streets wearing masks.
Yeah, well, I see them too because I was out there today, and I was, I saw them. I went to the Mercado Sano, and I went to La Comer, and so I think I don't know what different countries are saying. I know there is a scarcity of masks, especially in Mexico. There's a scarcity of masks, and things are not getting better. In New York, I know there's a scarcity of masks. And what the health guy from the Secretary of Health is saying, if you have to go out, wear a mask if you have a symptom so you don't spread it to somebody else, but that it's not really going to protect you that well because if somebody if sneezes on you, it'll go. Your eyes are receptive organs so it is the most important. But you must maintain your distance. So if you maintain your distance, you're outside, you don't need a mask. And sometimes he also mentioned it can give you a false security.
Yeah, and I'd also like to add that the CDC and the biologists and doctors I've heard on NPR say absolutely they do not help you at all. Anything that's coming in will go through all these masks unless you have a hospital-rated physician's mask, which we will never have. They don't do you any good. And in fact, a couple of doctors said they actually could be harmful because they make your nose and mouth more moist. You're perspiring in there, which is not good. So really, the mask is what you said, false safety. It does no good at all. So just don't do it. Wear gloves, don't wear a mask.
I'd like to just put in one thing here because we had our meeting earlier today with the Eco Village because they're a group of people that are fairly isolated and they have to follow a lot of guidelines. What they do is somebody who has to go shopping and actually leave the compound and the area, when they come back, they're required to wear a mask and protective stuff to protect everybody in case they pick something up. And so they're somewhat protected, or they're protecting other people for 2 weeks.
Okay, very good.
Now, the next question, Michael, I see from I guess it was Colin here. If you're eating a whole food, plant-based diet, Claudia, oh, no, sorry, one more, sorry, before here. I want to ask about supplements, vitamin C, D, and others. Should I be using any of these or relying strictly on whole foods? Does my immune system have enough oompa without adding more supplements?
Well, there you're talking about there's two different, I guess, there are people who believe in supplements and as far as I'm concerned, and the people I follow, whether it's Greger or McDougall or Barnard or Colin Camp, it's whole plant-based foods, and you should, with B12, which is missing, we should have that. And, if you're not getting enough sunlight, it's vitamin D. And yet there's some what's his name, Robbins, Dr. Robbins, he talks about the what do you call it, the fats, what do you call it? The omega-3. So he suggests it. But I used to take a lot of supplements until about 6 years ago. I used to take 13 supplements a day, which I did for 5 years. And
Wow.
yeah, I used to buy them from what was it, Life Extension, which is a very well known in the States. I used to spend a lot of money. We used to go up there from Mexico, and I used to pay hundreds of dollars every 6 months. And then one thing I noticed, because I used to get their magazine, and magazines were wonderful. They had some great articles in it. And I noticed that, I would read the article, and they would never suggest eating certain foods for, an illness. And then 3 pages later was the vitamin that would deal with what they were talking about in the article. And that started to turn me off. And then I found out that, the person who's really against vitamins is T. Colin Campbell. T. Colin Campbell's not a doctor; he's a biochemist, and he's the one who did the China study. And his basic feeling on this is that throughout its millions of years of development, and time that the human beings or even apes have been on this Earth, they've always the body always ate whole foods. And it's only because, for whatever reasons, they say, no, you're not getting enough supplements for this reason or that reason. So supplements are decades old, so it's fairly recent. And I'm feeling fine. I'm talking about 6 years without supplements, except for vitamin B12. I do take some, herbs. I take curcumin and amla, also amla powder, and, a couple of those. And, but there's vitamins and minerals. Plus, there's another problem with vitamins and minerals. And this is even Greger has done studies on this. You don't get what you pay for. You really don't get, you don't even know what you're getting, because the vitamins and minerals are pretty much being taken over by the pharmaceutical companies. And they did tests. In one of his recent videos, Greger, they did tests on, I forgot which one it was. And it was nowhere near what it was on, what's that substance that you take before you go to sleep well?
Oh, melatonin?
What?
Melatonin.
Melatonin. And they did this study on companies. They did it, and it had nothing to do with the amount it said in the bottle. It's like, and some didn't even have any. And that's what we're up against. And you don't know what you're getting, because see the pharmaceuticals, the FDA is, they're the ones that are in charge of they watch the pharmaceutical companies, so they're more regulated. But they did deregulation of the what do you call it, the supplements in the 90s. So supplements, you can do anything you want and get away with it. The only way they can check you is if they do tests on that, but they can't do anything beforehand. They can get, like what Greger did. They went in, they did this study. Well, somebody else did the study. They took them off the shelves and they did studies on them, and then they produced the study. But there's no regulation now before they put out a supplement product. So that's why it's like, I'm doing fine, and I just do what Greger says and the others say. Get an assortment of foods like the ones I put up on the screen there. And that's what I do.
Any other questions at this point?
Well, I added a comment, but I guess it didn't come through on the chat. So I just want to tell people that I'm working with some of my clients online now through Zoom. I'm a trainer, so I'm training some of my clients online. If somebody wants to do that, you can contact me. And I guess you're not advocating this, but I have to be outdoors. And I go and train myself outdoors at Parque Juarez. And I have a couple of clients that I work with one at a time. And it's pretty easy to stay about 10 feet apart because you're out on a big court. So I train him outdoors from far away. It works just fine. So if anybody's interested in online training or working in the park, training in the park, let me know.
Thanks, Robin.
Okay.
I guess I want to say thank you very much, Michael, for your terrific presentation, very inspirational, and I hope that we have many more of these, especially since people are locked up, and it's nice for us to communicate amongst each other. Anybody has anything else to say, please do, and then we could wrap things up.
Okay, thanks. Great.
Yeah, thanks. Thank everybody for attending. We didn't know expecting 100 people, but it's okay. Maybe next week.
Maybe next time, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Michael. I
Okay,
appreciate
thank you
your
all.
time and effort.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.